Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Retropower Uncut. And today I'm going to start with Chevette. So we've been reasonably busy on the Chevette. We've had a few jobs that we're kind of awaiting headlining, basically. Cal's the in-house headlining expert, so we were waiting for Cal to be able to get on to doing the headlining, so we've been picking up a few other jobs. Cal got onto that at the end of last week. He got the headlining all fitted, that's all in. And then that enables a bit of a sort of avalanche of other jobs to take place, sort of working from the top down. Obviously the glass can then go in once the headlining's in. So windscreen's now in, rear window's in, plastic rear window, glass front window. The wiper mechanism was already in. Then Scott's been working a little bit more on the interior. He's got the last bits of tidying up that were necessary prior to the seats going in. He's got the seats in, harnesses in, that's all done now. The doors are now pretty much built up. On the doors, James had already made the carbon fibre door cards, and he trial fitted those. There was no problems there, but there were various things. There's some little spacers needed behind them because in the original doors there are dimples in the door inners for the plastic trim clips to go into that held the original vinyl and hardboard door cards. We now need to space these so that the carbon isn't pulled into those dimples, because we've riv-nutted the dimples for the screws to hold the door cards in, and we don't want the door cards to distort when the screws pull them up. So they have now got little nylon spacers on each screw to make sure that the door card stays flat when it's bolted up. Scott's also fitted the remainder of the door inners, which were kind of awaiting another job that Cal had done, which was fitting the window winder mechanisms. If anybody's worked with Chevette winder mechanisms previously, you'll be aware that they have a cable mechanism, a loose cable mechanism, which is a nightmare to fit. It's basically just a loose wire that wraps around a drum that is operated by the winder. They're very reliable once they're in, but they do tend to end up as just a big tangle of wire between being stripped from the car and waiting to go back in the car. So Cal had refitted those. That's enabled Scott to then fit the door lock mechanisms, the door check straps, and the latches and all the other parts inside the door. And then he's also fitted the door interior release handles and then the door grab handles for shutting the doors, which you may remember from previous episodes. We had George had designed, George had drawn up some handles. We decided they were good. They'd been machined and then they've been sent for anodising. They're now black anodised, they're back, and they're now fitted to the doors as well. Looking at them, I think we're waiting for the fasteners, a duplicate set of fasteners for those to be black Xylan coated, and then they'll be changed for the bright zinc plated fasteners that are in there at the moment. And then also, Scott's been able to carry on with the dashboard fitment. There were a few little bits of wiring. There's not a lot of wiring in the dash, but the few little bits of wiring that needed finishing to tie into the dash, they've been done, and now the dashboard's all fitted. So things are progressing apace. I think the next step is going to be fitting the rear quarter windows, which we've been waiting for the seals for. Unfortunately, one of the rear quarter window seals that were with the car was perished a little bit in various places and wasn't good enough to reuse, which is a shame because the other side's very good. They're not an available part. They have been produced in the aftermarket on and off, but there are none currently available as far as we can determine. So we are making those up using an endless length of seal, so it won't be a moulded. So the fit in the corners is going to take a little bit of finessing. Finessing is the word, a little bit of finessing to make it fit in the corners. But Scott will be on with that next on that to get the rear windows fitting nicely. So yeah, work progressing apace on the Chevette, and we're I'd hesitate to use the words "the end is in sight," but it is pretty much. There are a number of jobs still to do, but it is coming together quite well. And road testing isn't going to be a million miles away on that. That's starting to come together quite well. So moving on from that, we will head on to the Mustang, which has also been progressing. We've picked back up with work on. Lots of people have been asking what was going on with the Mustang. Well, I think we've mentioned we were picking it back up. We have done now. Adam, our new chap, has been cracking on with this, along with a little bit of help from Stu. The rear bumper fitment. Basically, the bumper wasn't really the right shape. It's an aftermarket bumper, not really the right shape. The brackets are aftermarket brackets. They weren't really the right shape. And the car is built from aftermarket panels, which aren't really the right shape. So none of the parts fitted. So, so Stu's been making them fit. Now the entertaining part about that is all that we've really got to go on is photographs of nicely rebuilt Mustangs. Well, if you look up photographs of nicely rebuilt 65, 66 Mustang coupes, you find that the bumper fitment varies by about an inch in every direction. So we've sort of took an average of how the bumper should appear, and then Stu's remade the brackets, modified those, modified the shape of the bumper, generally modified everything to get the bumper to fit more or less on average as it appears to be supposed to fit on a Mustang. But that's it. I imagine there's a lot of debate about how it's supposed to fit because it seems to be quite a variable thing. But it now does fit nicely. The gaps appear to be gaps where they should be. And that all looks reasonable now. It's just a strange design the way that fits, but it is all in place now. And Adam's been on with the door builds, been sorting those out, getting the glass bonded into the chrome frames for the windows, getting those fitted in the doors, the winder mechanisms fitted, which are new, the lock mechanisms fitted, which are new, the door handles fitted, which I think are new. Pretty much everything's new. Getting all those parts fitted in the doors, and I think he's just moved on now to, and the steward also made up some parts for the final fit of the steering column. They're now in as well. And I think he's now moved on to the washer plumbing, actually getting the windscreen washers sorted out and those bits prior to being able to fit the glass. Obviously there's going to be the same chain of events with this in that we're going to have to start looking at things like headlining to enable us to then work down through the rest of the interior. But there are still a few engine bay parts, and we still had a little roundup of parts to paint actually that were sort of, we'd had a bit of a delay on a couple of items, and so Gaz is literally tomorrow I think, is painting the final batch of parts for the front end of this. So once they're painted, they'll be able to go back together, and then all the front end sheet metal can then all be finalised and put together. And then I think the car's going on to, later today or tomorrow morning, going on to the lift so that we can start with some of the underside jobs, the fuel pipe work. We've got to make the fuel lines up and various other things there. So that's where this one's heading. That's all starting to march forward again now. So I think on that subject of marching, we'll wander through to the fabrication shop. We'll head that way. Ah yes, Cal's just shouted, and it's a very good point. We have a large stock of mugs. So zooming right in, if you would like a Retropower mug, please go to our online shop and you will be able to find the mugs on there and you'll be able to buy one. And they're very nice actually. They're keeping my cup of coffee beautifully warm at the moment. And we'll wander through here now. And we're going to do, because we keep ending with Jensen, we're going to start the fabrication stroke body prep area with Jensen today. And Gaz and Steve are busily battling fiberglass and ill-fitting Jensen parts. So here we are in Dustville. The primary focus of this week's efforts has been the modification of the front and rear mainly, with only not long been started on the front, but front and rear windscreen screen apertures. The car's being modified to take bonded in glass instead of the rubber sealed in glass. So we've got to modify the apertures so that the screens can be bonded in. So they need to be made smaller. We don't really want to have to make custom front and rear windows. We're already making a custom roof. We don't really want to have to make custom front and rear windows as well. So we've modified the apertures and basically brought them in so that the glass can then be fitted in and not just fall through the hole if you try and glue it in. So that's taking place and taking shape now. That's coming together quite well. And then alongside that, we've been working on the rear quarter panels. This side's a little bit further behind than the other side. This side, the quarter panel was basically smashed to pieces in an accident in the past and has then been crudely glued together. And so it's a bit of a state really. The other side was better, so Gaz has started with the other side to get the initial shape. He's pulled all that, made all that the shape that we want, and then he's taken profiles off that and copied them to this side, and he's part way through that. There's still a little way to go on that because he's trying to create it from just a mess this side. It was nowhere near the right shape for a Jensen originally, this side. So it takes quite a bit of work to get it somewhere near before we can then even modify it to make it match the other side. But that's progressing quite well. The rear valance area that you saw before, that's actually getting pretty close now. So things are coming along. As I say, mentioned it before, but we're waiting for the to get the tool done for the roof. So then once we can shape the centre part of the roof, then we can finish blending the front and rear screen apertures into that. On the other point in here is where we've modified the front screen aperture. The pillars are quite slim, and the way the fiberglass was done basically meant that we couldn't really modify this area. So we've actually cut that out completely. Gaz has put some steel sections or aluminium sections into there, which are fiberglassed in at the moment. Then when the mould's taken off that'll be a carbon piece, and it actually bolts now into the side of the pillar rather than the top of the pillar as original there. So we've basically modified how it fits the steel body side now. But that's all, again, quite a good progress actually. It's come together really well. That's starting to take shape. Again, ignore stuff like these huge variations in thickness and this sort of thing. We've basically been making the aperture so that it holds the screen at the right angle, in the right position, with an even gap underneath it. And it doesn't really matter. None of this matters because we're going to be taking the moulds. The moulds are all going to be taken off this top face. So none of that really matters. So yeah, you just ignore the fact that all this looks pretty wobbly. It's largely irrelevant because this is just going to be a book. A mould will be taken off this, and then the carbon parts will be made from that. So ignore those bits. Yeah, Gaz is just starting work on the sides. Basically, the final parts of we're not making there's a bit of a chain of events here. We are going to make the aluminium door skins to fit the fiberglass aperture, but we need to make the fiberglass aperture approximately right before we make the door skins fit it. To get that approximately right, we need to double check that we have the height of this section here correct, because so many things have been changed that there's a concern that we could lose the height of the waistline on the B-post. Now, we're pretty confident they're in the right place. All of that then, the way that the top of the quarter panel joins to the body side on the Jensen was pretty much picking up bits of scrap from the scrap bin and screwing them together with wood screws. It wasn't a very technical piece, to put it mildly. So we're going to change that and make all that a little bit more professional, the way that's joined together. We've got the benefit of a bit more time and a bit more ability to spend money than Jensen had at the time that they did the car. The extra comedy factor this brings in is that the original CV8s used Perspex rear windows, and they used Perspex rear windows because none of the cars were the same. And in fact, the car isn't the same one side to the other. So you couldn't really have glass windows because they all needed to be adjusted to suit the car. So the windows were actually sanded and shaped to fit individual bodies. So these two windows, the window for the near side is completely different to the window for the off side, which is probably completely different to the windows that were fitted to another CV8. So we are going to get those apertures to a position, to the point we're happy with them. And then once we're completely happy with all that, we know that this is correct, we can make the door skins, but then further to that, we can then have glass windows made. Because again, the cost of doing one-off flat glass, because these are flat windows, in the scheme of things, is extremely minor, a negligible cost really. In fact, it's probably no more expensive in glass than it is in Perspex. So we'll just have the windows then made as a pair of probably not exactly the same windows to suit the apertures on the car. So that's where we're at on Jensen. I think we'll wander on from there. I'll nip past and we'll head over this way, over to a Landcruiser. And over here, a lot of the work that we've been doing, that Tom's been doing, is on seats. You may recall from the previous week, we were electing to use a sort of series Land Rover-ish seat arrangement. Tom was on with fabricating the base frames to take the cushion inserts, if you like, the base cushion inserts. I think we mentioned that last week. Well, he's finished those off. I think they were pretty much finished at the end of last week. He's then set to on this base frame. And I'll just hand over to Tom for a minute just to talk you through what he's been up to on that.
So yeah, started off by buying some Defender seats, just to sort of get an idea of what could fit in. And then sort of design this base, box section base for it all. And then we made up the channel, put some stiffeners in the channel and some U sections so these cross members can sit inside that, so the sheet can all sort of sit flat to it. And then built up the box section frame, put crush tubes through the floor, and the box section underneath the floor, and then sort of radded the ends of these so it can pivot on that, so there's more, the fuel tanks are more accessible, yeah. And yeah, that's about it.
Right, so thanks Tom. He's explained what he's been up to on there. So the next phase on from doing the base is we've got to do the rear cushion supports. We're using a chunk of the recline mechanism and rear seat support mechanism from the Landcruiser, but modifying it to suit these new seats. So he's basically making another set of frames, which are over here, sort of in the background, very similar to the bases, but a different shape so that they take the backrests. We're making a new set of those. This is all fabricated in 2mm sheet steel. There'll then be a reinforcer section up on the inside of this up here to take the captive nuts that it needs, and then the Landcruiser seat mechanism will bolt onto the sides of that and enable that to fold. The single seat on the driver's side, double seat on the passenger side. That'll then fold and lock on the original Landcruiser mechanism, but fitted to the new seat bases that we've made in there. And again, I think I mentioned it before, and Tom's probably mentioned it, you know, the seat bases have got various bits of access built in so that we can get at fuel tanks and things underneath. So he's making good progress on all that. It's all coming on quite well. I think by the end of next week, we should have pretty much finished seat arrangement, which will be a nice position to be at, because it's quite a lot of fabrication involved in that area. Although it's all relatively simple, to do it all neatly and nicely and working on the basis that a lot of it's going to be visible. A lot of these parts, when they're finished, are actually going to be visible metal parts. So it all does need to be done pretty neatly, and on that, you know, it is being done very neatly. It's doing a lovely job. So that's where Landcruiser's at the minute. Then we will wander on now to Churchill, the Mark II Jaguar two-door coupe, which is now progressed to being sat on the Jig. But I will let the footage flip over to Rich doing the blasting, which was done. When were we blasting this? Yesterday.
Work hard at school, kids. This is one of the good ones.
Yeah, so Rich has now blasted the body shell. It's blasted with crushed glass and big diesel compressor that runs our blast room. That's all done. The body, it's come out looking very good actually, as good as we'd hoped it might at the point when we stripped all the underseal and everything else off. But we were being careful to leap to that conclusion that it was good. But it is extremely good. There's a few very minor repairs been done on it in Mark II Jag terms. A little bit at the front, a little bit at the back, but nothing major. And there's a few little rot repairs needed on it, but very little really. It's actually very good. So it's a very good basis to start from to start doing the surgery that we're going to be doing in terms of the rear half, well, the upper and rear half of the body shell. And then, yeah, you'll see a very light coat of X primer. Rich has put a very, very, very light coat of X primer on it. It's really just to stop the appearance of the car degrading while it's in here. The car doesn't really, as long as the blasting's undertaken on a dry day and we've got good moisture control on the compressed air, then there isn't really, you could leave the car actually, and as long as it was done under those conditions, it won't really surface rust. However, we put a little bit of etch primer on just to make sure that it doesn't start to surface rust, more or less, mainly just because it would look scruffy. You have to remember that these cars will be blasted again before paint. We reblast and then zinc metal spray later on in the process once we finish metal work to key up all the new metal and to allow us to zinc metal spray. So any slight bits of surface rust would be taken away by the reblast process anyway, but it looks scruffy while it's in here. So we put a little bit of etch primer on just to make sure that it doesn't start looking scruffy. And yeah, the stage it's at now, Stu's got it pretty much centre lined onto, we use the Select Jig Bench. Brilliant way of keeping a car straight, square, making sure that no flex happens that we don't want to happen, and everything is kept under control, and it gives us a good dimensional reference when we're doing any modifications to a car. When we do any chassis work, it's all done, and we've got 2 Select Jig Benches here, and any chassis work that we do will be done on one or the other of these jig benches. They're very useful bits of kit. All the beams have a hole, M16 or 16 mil, many with threaded inserts under them, holes all the way along at 100 millimeter pitches, so you can reference everything to those 100 mil pitches, even outside of Select's own system, where they have car-specific bracket sets which then fit via towers and beams and a whole system that I won't go into all of. But outside of that, you still have these holes on 100 millimeter pitches, the whole length of the jig. So we've got really good reference when we're referencing one axle centre line to another axle centre line. We can do it very easily because we've got these built-in references. And it's a brilliant way of holding the car straight. And because we're doing quite a lot of roof surgery on this, we want to get the car pinned down to the jig, all bolted down so no flex can occur while we put some fairly crucial cuts through the monocoque. So yeah, there'll be 2 brackets at the very front, which will be removable so that we can put the engine in and do various other work there. There'll be 2 brackets underneath where the jacking point's attached to the chassis rails. The car's actually going to be welded to those brackets so it doesn't flex at all there, and there's no movement there. And then it's going to be pinned to 2 more brackets that fit the leading end of the quarter elliptic spring hangers at the back. The car won't be having quarter elliptics in it. The rear end in this is actually down there. That's just arrived today as well. That's from the rear end of an old S-type police pursuit car, actually, as things would happen. That's just turned up this afternoon. And that's the basis of the rear end that will be going into this car. We may be changing a few things on that. I probably won't elaborate on all that now because I'll be off on a huge tangent, but that'll be going into the back, so we won't be using the quarter elliptic hangers, but we're going to pick up off the front bolt holes on the quarter elliptic hangers for the support towers that will locate the back part of the car, and then there's a set of beams out the very back of the jig with 2 more towers that will come off that and pick up off the main rear bumper mounts into the rear panel, just so that we can't have any droop on the rear part of the car when we detach the quarter panels and detach the rear part of the roof for the changes we've got to make to the roof line. There's quite a lot of metal surgery. Obviously, we've got to move the B pillars, the quarters have got to be completely refabricated, the C pillars have got to be refabricated, and we've got to change the roof line, lower the roof, change the window apertures, and obviously fabricate doors. There's a whole lot of metal work to go on there, but making sure that it's all bolted down to the jig and it can't all move is pretty key to that. So watch this space on this one. There's plenty of metalwork fun to see, and it's going to be quite a journey to follow that one. And then last but not, have I missed anything really on that? I don't think I have I? I think we've got everything there, hopefully. We can cover it. Of course, yes, sorry. Another point, actually. I mean, Jarko was probably about to tell me this. Another key point is obviously we've also had the arrival of, that's one donor part. The other key donor part that we've also sourced this week, we set out Monday morning, set out to try and source an engine donor for this. We had a bit of a lead on a Jaguar X300 XJR, the supercharged straight 6 4-litre XJR, and sure enough there was one pretty locally to us with low miles but cosmetically tatty, very reasonable price, and yet for by end of the day Monday that was sourced in here. No, end of the day Tuesday, that was sourced in here. So we now have the engine donor for this. I think it's 80-something thousand mile 4-litre Jaguar straight 6 XJR, the X300 XJR. We'll be using the engine and transmission from that. Both will be completely rebuilt. They'll be running aftermarket engine management. The transmission will be running an aftermarket controller, but it's a GM transmission that they use, so that's very easy to do. And we may, depending on how we go, we'll either run the power lock diff that's in that, or we might run the Dana limited slip unit that the XJR had in. We're not quite sure on that yet. Could run either. They both fit the same casing, so decision not made on that one yet. So yeah, we now have the engine donor. So next week, early part of next week, then the engine, transmission, rear axle, and a good chunk of interior will be coming out of that XJR, and we'll be getting all those parts ready so we can also start looking at the mechanical mock-up on this Mark II and start working out what modifications we need to do to be able to fit that engine as well, because that's a real, I love those X300s have got quite a soft spot with both Cal and I. We really do quite like them, and those engines are absolutely bomb-proof. They literally, probably the most over-engineered engine ever. They're just ridiculous. So they really kind of suit this sort of car. They're just a really nice unit. There's plenty of things that are more modern. There's plenty of things that will make loads more power. There's plenty of things that are probably peripheral-wise more reliable, but as a unit that's got a real heart, and the internals are bomb-proof on, they're just brilliant. So yeah, that's what's going into that. And yeah, so we've got the donor here as well. So moving on, I think that's probably covered everything on that. The last little bit will be just a little snippet of there in the blast room is now lurking the Morris Minor. That's ready to blast. We're not going to now fit that in until Monday morning. That's going to be blast and zinc metal spray first thing Monday, because it's quite a long day, and with the way timings have fallen, we're not going to be able to get it in until then, because we need a completely full, clear day. It's pretty frenetic to get the blasting work done, because there's a few hours in that, then get the zinc metal spraying done, there's a few hours in that, then get the dust out of the car, there's a few hours in that, and then get the epoxy primer on it. So to do all of that in a day means you need to start absolutely first thing in the morning and usually work on into the evening. So we need a completely clear day, and Monday's the first completely clear day we've got. So that's when we'll be hitting the Morris and getting that to the stage where it's ready for Gaz's attention. So I think that's pretty much summed up quite a busy week. And so yeah, until next time, have fun. We'll see you again.